Everybody, thank you for attending the Arpa Task Force Community Outreach Meeting. Alderwoman Malele Coggs, who chairs the task force, is here to provide an introduction. Alderwoman Coggs.
Thank you, Andrea. As was mentioned, I am Alderwoman Malele A. Coggs. I have both the pleasure and the honor of representing the 6th Automatic District. I also have the honor of serving as the chairwoman of the ARPA Task Force. Many of you may know that as a result of the pandemic, the federal government has seen fit to give assistance to municipalities. The City of Milwaukee has received nearly $400 million, the majority of which has already been allocated. But there is currently $92.7 million that we have to make decisions on. We have to make decisions as to where it will be allocated. And while in full transparency, the majority of that money will go to helping to continue to provide basic services that we as a city already provide, we recognize that there is opportunity. There is opportunity to hear from residents about where you would prioritize us to spend these funds. And there may be some areas that we may not have thought about that you may, and you have an opportunity tonight, as well as through the surveys that are on the City of Milwaukee's website, to share your opinion about both of which city services that already exist that you think we should prioritize in our spending, and also an opportunity to let us know about some different things that may not be on the survey or on the list that you believe we should be investing in. We definitely want to hear from you all. The recommendations of the task force will be given to the full council for consideration on how to spend this 92.7. I want to thank each of you for coming out tonight on what I know was a cold day, but taking this time to get on this Zoom so that you can share with us your thoughts. We are here to listen. I want to say a specific thank you to Alderwoman Jocasta Zamaripa, who also is a member of the task force, who is here this evening, and Alderman Scott Spiker, who is not a member of the task force, but who is here as well. And forgive me if there are any other alders who I don't see at this moment, but we are here to listen and want to hear your comments about what's important that we spend this money on. Thank you. Oh, I think it's important to say the federal government requires that all of the money be encumbered by the end of 2024 and be fully spent by 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Coggs. And thank you everybody for attending. I echo the chairwoman's comments. It's a pretty cold night out there, so thank you for attending virtually. And before we get started, I will have a very short introduction to the American Rescue Plan Act and what the city has done with the portion of the funding that we have already allocated. That is not going to be a long presentation. I should be 10 minutes or less, assuming all goes well. And then we want to hear from you. We do have quite a few people who have registered to speak, and currently 71 of those people are here. So after I'm done giving a very short PowerPoint introduction, we'll switch over to testimony from people who have registered. And Chris Lee from our city clerk's office is going to be calling your name. And at that point, you'll be able to unmute and provide your testimony. We will all be taking notes. Please be assured everyone here is paying attention, and your comments will be passed along to the ARPA task force as a whole, along with the comments from people who attended the first 2 in-person community meetings. Because we have so many attendees who have registered to speak, we will be limiting your comments to 1 minute. So I know that's a pretty short amount of time. If any of you would like to provide additional testimony, please feel free to contact your alderperson. Even if your alderperson, you currently don't have someone sitting in your district, you can still email your district and staff will read your emails and pass along those comments to the task force itself. Later on, I'll be putting my email in the chat. And so will Alderwoman Coggs and Alderwoman Zamaripa, Alderman Spiker. I invite you to do the same if you would like. And of course, any people on this call who do not have alder people in attendance, those email addresses are readily available on the city website, and I know that they would all welcome your input. So with that, we do have a couple comments that say that the audio has a lot of echo. I think we should have that sorted out. If not, please look at the bottom of your screen and there should be an interpretation button. Make sure that you are clicking either English or Spanish, depending on the language of your choice, and that should help to reduce the echo. All right, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get into the introduction portion. Let me see here. All right, you should all be able to see the slideshow presentation. If not, please throw a comment into the chat. But let me start by introducing myself. My name is Andrea Fowler, and I'm the city's ARPA director, which means that I monitor how the city spends the money. I make sure that we're in full compliance with all of the rules that the federal government has placed on the expenditure of these funds. But what I don't do is decide how or where we spend the money. That is up to the Common Council and the mayor's office working together in conjunction with the Common Council. And as Alderwoman Cox mentioned, the remaining $92.7 million is currently sitting with the ARPA task force, who will be providing a recommendation to the Common Council as a whole as to how we should spend the remainder of this funding. And that's why you're here, to inform the task force of how you believe the city should be allocating and spending that money. So first, I'd like to give a little bit of background on what the American Rescue Plan Act is for anyone who might be in attendance who isn't familiar with what this act is. It was signed into law by President Biden in 2021, and it provides funding to provide assistance to recover from the pandemic. Now, that means that we can only use ARPA funds for specific types of things. We can't just go out there and spend it on anything we would like. The rules provided by the Department of the Treasury provide that we can spend this money to replace public sector revenue. So that would be providing government services that the city typically provides to its residents. That doesn't mean just keeping the lights on in City Hall and paying staff, however. That means continuing to provide a lot of the programs that already reach out into your communities and provide valuable services. For example, a lot of our public health programs, our fire and police services, our Department of City Development and Department of Neighborhood Services programs can all benefit from this type of funding. The second category is to provide public health expenditures to address problems made worse by COVID-19. So this means if a population or an individual or even a business suffered an impact to their health or the health of their employees, possibly, this money could be used to help right that problem. The third category is to reduce the negative economic impacts caused by COVID-19. And this is a relatively broad category that can encompass assistance to businesses and nonprofits, and also individuals like homeowners who may have fallen into one of these groups that, that did suffer some pretty disproportionate impacts of the pandemic. The fourth category is to provide premium pay for essential workers. I think we all heard about this as it was happening during the pandemic, but these are those people that continue to work in person and provide crucial services to the community during the pandemic. And finally, the last category is to provide investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. That's pretty self-explanatory. All right, so how much did the City of Milwaukee receive? As Alderwoman Cogs mentioned, we received $392.4 million, and the city has presently allocated about $302 million of that initial allocation, leaving $92.7 million remaining, and that's why we're here today. And I'm going to go into a little bit about what the city has done to allocate those funding, where it went, and what input we received from the public before we made those decisions. So first, how did the city decide to allocate the first about $302 million? Well, we reached out to you through a variety of means to try to determine what city residents thought we should do. The first was through a public online survey at city.milwaukee.gov/ARPA. That survey is still live, and I would urge everyone on this call to open up that survey at the end of our presentation and provide your feedback directly. We also mailed a survey to the 53206 zip code because we determined that residents of that zip code were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, but the responses from people in that district were relatively low. So we wanted to reach out to them directly, and we did, and we received quite a few responses via the mail from that district. And finally, we performed targeted outreach to especially vulnerable communities through a vendor who held community meetings, had one-on-one conversations, and reached out to those groups through a variety of other means. All right, so what did they say? Well, first of all, individuals responding to the 53206 survey, which I would add is the same survey that appears on the city's website, just in hard copy, identified housing access, economic and workforce development, and public safety as their highest priorities. Responses to the online survey were relatively similar. Those respondents identified public safety, economic and workforce development, infrastructure and transportation, public health, and housing in the top half of their preferred spending categories. And finally, respondents to the targeted outreach also identified housing access. They identified mental health care as well, and public safety and recreation as their top 3 areas of preference. All right, so how did we actually spend the money? Well, we listened, and we spent the money in the areas that were highlighted by our respondents. Particularly, housing and neighborhoods received about $74.2 million. Government services, that category I mentioned earlier, in which the city can spend the money on ordinary city expenditures, including those programs, and particularly, I should add, those programs that reach out into the city to serve its residents, was the second highest funded. Public health and safety was the third, and economic and workforce development was the fourth. Although I might add that that category has particularly reached out to early childhood services, childcare, and has had some really profound impacts in the community. But let me break this down for you a little bit more. Our current investments currently allocate $30 million to lead remediation throughout the community of Milwaukee. This includes lead abatement services, training lead workers so that we actually have enough people to go out there and do the projects that we're able to fund. And finally, by providing energy efficient upgrades to lead abated homes so that those homeowners might benefit from cheaper utility bills moving forward. We have allocated $40 million to affordable housing and home ownership rental opportunities. And this was split through a variety of programs that are all very impactful throughout the community. The Housing Trust Fund received $10 million. Our Housing Authority received $9 million to complete a housing development. Our Homes Milwaukee program received $15 million to remediate foreclosed properties and bring those properties back into home ownership at affordable rates. Our down payment assistance program has received $5 million to assist with down payment assistance, and our Strong Homes program has been provided $1 million to complement its already well-funded program moving forward. Additionally, you can see the categories highlighted here, but we've allocated $7.3 million to early childhood education, stipends, training, and tutoring. We have allocated $5.1 million to our Earn and Learn programs. And these are programs that pay youth to learn skills over the summer. We've allocated $9.7 million currently to support our basic ambulance life support service so that when city residents have an accident that is not life-threatening but still requires a ride to the hospital and medical support during that ride, an ambulance will show up at your door and take you there. We have allocated $6.5 million to gun violence reduction. $7.2 million to reckless driving reduction programs. These include programs to implement traffic calming measures, so speed humps if neighborhoods apply for them, and reduce the cost of those, as well as public awareness campaigns and reduce speed limits throughout the city, as well as some enforcement. We've dedicated $19.5 million for street lighting improvements, with the goal of making those neighborhoods feel, of course, more better lighting, but also to provide a heightened sense of safety throughout those neighborhoods. And then finally, we've allocated $4.3 million to violence prevention programs. And it's pretty exciting. Our Office of Violence Prevention is currently contracting with a number of partners, and we should see that money getting to work pretty soon out there in our community. So this would not be a presentation by a member of the budget office, such as myself, without one doom and gloom slide. It is important to note that the city is facing a pretty dire financial situation going into 2024 and beyond. We currently expect a budget gap of approximately $150 million. And that is expected to continue due to a low amount of shared revenue from the state, as well as certain obligations the city has to pay its pension contributions, as well as simply the effect of inflation on a city that has not seen a substantial increase in shared revenue for quite a few years. That gap was more than half filled by ARPA allocations throughout 2022 and 2023. But we have not yet made a decision as to whether the remaining funding would be dedicated to that gap, although we expect that some of it probably will be. So now I turn it back to you. How should we spend the rest of this money? Well, the city council has established an ARPA task force, and their goal is to solicit information from residents such as yourselves, from city departments as well, and to make a recommendation to the Common Council's Finance and Personnel Committee, allocating that $92.7 million. So we're here today to hear what you have to say. Again, we do have a survey online. If you're not able to speak today or don't want to, but do want to contribute your thoughts, please fill out that survey. You can see it here. This is the address. We also have a QR code that you can just scan with your phone as we take questions. So please do fill out that survey if you're able to. We've conducted 3 outreach meetings. This is the third. The first 2 were in person earlier in February. And we're here today for our online version of that. So with that, I would like to turn it back over to Chris Lee from our city clerk's office, who will identify the speakers. I'm going to stay here as everybody else and take notes of what you have to say. Again, please try to keep your comments to 1 minute so that everybody has a chance to speak. And Chris will very politely notify you if your time has expired. So thank you, Chris. I'm going to mute my microphone and hand it over to you.
Thank you. We will call on the names in the order in which they signed up. First up is Meg Kilkenny, followed by Jeff Sponcia. And let us know if you have any difficulty unmuting yourself. You should have the ability to unmute yourself and speak. Again, first up is Meg Kilkenny and Jeff Sponcia. Okay, looks like some people are saying there's difficulty with unmuting. I would ask channel 25 for assistance.
I don't see Meg here, but Jeff is here and he can talk now.
Okay, Meg Kilkenny is here. Jeff is here.
Hello, this is Jeff Sponcia. I'm not sure if the first person is there, but I'll be very quick. Definitely want to advocate for infrastructure improvements in our streets, not only to reduce reckless driving, but also to fully fund a reconstruction of both National Avenue and also Sherman Boulevard. Not sure if these funds can help with that, but any kind of a multimodal bicycle and also transit friendly infrastructure would be great. That's all I have. Thank you.
And Meg Kilkenny is open. She can talk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you to the ARPA Task Force and Chairwoman. My name is Meg. I'm a resident of District 14, and I would like to encourage the task force to invest in strategies and recommendations listed in the City County Climate and Equity Plan that was created by the City County Task Force on Climate Change and Economic Equity. One of these recommendations includes a plan to improve healthy food access in our emergency food system by means of reducing food waste and recovering edible food to be redistributed to those in need, not only to support food security, which is going to be a huge issue, especially as we are about to see pandemic SNAP EBT benefits ending at the end of this month, but also to mitigate the effects of climate change by reducing food waste that ends up in our solid waste system. You can reference Chapter 10 of the Climate and Equity Plan entitled Food Waste Reduction to learn more. And that is all I have. So thank you to the task force for your time.
Next up is Terry Murphy and Amy Oath.
Terry's mic is open. He can speak, or she can speak.
And Terry Murphy and Amy Oath, you are present. Please unmute yourself.
I don't wish to make any comments. Thank you.
Moving on, Marcos Figueroa and Otasia Jackson. If you don't wish to speak, please let us know.
Chris, I see that some people are commenting in the Q&A that they don't wish to speak. Not these individuals, but.
Okay, we will just be moving on. If you do wish to speak, please press your raise hand function. Brigetta Wilson, Natasia Jackson.
Brigitta's mic is open. She can speak.
Okay, thank you. I just thank you all for this information tonight. I think I just have a question. I put it in the chat. I see that Alderwoman Jocassia spoke to it in regards to just housing. I was just gonna follow up with asking about what are some of the I guess the outcomes of those current dollars that we've already invested in the community, if we see that impact yet, and also how are we looking at maybe using some of the dollars for mental health as well as the substance abuse issues that we're seeing in our community. So just wanted to speak to those points when it comes to just using these dollars in ways that is speaking to some of the bigger needs around mental health and substance use, as well as I saw some of the dollars I just want to be mindful of where the dollars that's been spent, what are those outcomes looking like? And if we have data on that already.
Sure. Sure, Ms. Wilson, I'd be happy to add a quick response to that question because it's a good one and it's something that I forgot to bring up earlier when I was speaking. The city has a pretty robust ARPA website with a dashboard that is still under construction, but we're adding information to it almost daily. And the purpose of that dashboard is to provide you with just the information that you were mentioning. It has a list of every single project. It shows how much we're spending on it. And many of those projects are linked to performance indicators. So for example, when we have everything on there, it should tell you how much was spent in, which areas of the city, how many youth our Earn and Learn programs reached, how many homes were built, approximately, although of course not specific addresses, but approximately where those homes were built and located and the communities served. So I would urge you to take a look at that dashboard and to check back periodically because we are continuing to build it out. Thank you for bringing it up.
Okay. Moving on. I do see that some people who registered may not necessarily want to speak. So I think for logistic ease of use, I think for those who do want to speak, press the raise hand function. We can see those who want to speak raising their hand. I think this is a simpler way, and then we will have the ability to help unmute you.
Chris, is that after you call their name or just in general? They should raise their hands.
I think in general, I think if we go through the list, we might encounter some people not wanting to speak. So I think for logistic, to speed up the process, we'll just have those who are interested in speaking to raise their hand, and then we'll just take them in order by the way they raise their hand.
Thank you, Chris.
We can all see that on our attendees list. So next would be Reverend Dennis Jacobson.
I'm Dennis Jacobson. I chair the Advocacy Committee for the Coalition of Lead Emergency, or COLE, and we're urging $5 million of ARPA funding as seed investment in a public-private partnership for a Lead Safe and Healthy Homes Fund. We're really grateful for the $26 million in the first tranche of ARPA money. That's for lead abatement in the homes of children that tested 10 micrograms per deciliter above. It's not funding that can help out children that are younger than that, that are lower than that in terms of their lead poisoning, and does not allow preventative measures. So the fund we want to establish would do that, modeled on the Cleveland Lead Safe Coalition Fund. I was in a meeting earlier today with a leader in that, and they underscored the vital importance of having both private and public funding. $117 million to date in that fund, $50 million from hospital systems in the Cleveland area. An important part of it was a $15 million investment from the city. So this is a singular opportunity. If we don't take advantage of it with ARPA funding and seed investment, I don't think such a fund can happen in Milwaukee. Thank you.
Next, we have Grisel Delgado and Luis Pettering. Grisel Delgado, and Luis Pettering.
This is actually, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is actually Latanya Baker. I'm not sure why my staff name is showing. I apologize for that. Well, thank you all so much for even taking the time out to provide this information. It's been very, very helpful. I was going to speak on housing, but someone already did, so thank you for that clarification. I would also say just more training, allocate funds towards training. We serve a population of 1,500 families right now, and a lot of our families lack training skills, apprenticeship skills, or trade skills. So I would say allocating funds towards training, and then also speaking for some agencies that are not able to make it on this particular call tonight. I know a lot of small business companies that cannot even afford a grant writer and things of that nature. So I guess maybe more support and even how to even better prepare to even request these funds when we're, when we're writing proposals or RFPs and things of that nature. But that would be all my suggestion. Again, thank you so much for your time.
Luis Pettering and Diana Marriott.
Thank you. Louise Petering, I'm here for the League of Women Voters of Milwaukee County, asking for a significant portion of the ARPA funds to be directed to the ECO office of the City of Milwaukee. The ECO office has developed the Climate and Economic Equity Plan, which is quite comprehensive, does include funding for lead abatement, and does include funding for training of people in jobs, does include the idea of training people for jobs who are currently among the disenfranchised populations here in Milwaukee County. That plan is an incredible opportunity to address multiple problems in the city, including those that coal is confronting so capably. One of the critical aspects of the plan is it is collaborative among city departments and among stakeholders in the community, in diverse communities in this city. So please do allocate a portion of ARPA funds commensurate with the challenge of meeting the climate and economic equity plans goals, so all in our community have an opportunity to thrive. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Diana Marriott.
If I could just break in just quickly to address a question in the chat. A couple people are asking about how they should unmute. And I think the city, Paul from City Channel will be unmuting people right before you are speaking. Is that correct, Paul?
Yes, it is.
Is there anything else, Paul, that they need to do?
No, they just, as soon as their name is called, if their hand is raised and Chris announces them, I will unmute them.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize for interrupting. Please go ahead.
All right, yes, this is Deanna Marriott, and I am asking for $5 million to be sent to coal in regards to lead. I have 3 foster kids. They all came to me with very high lead over 4 years ago, and I still have 2 who lead is still to this day extremely high. It has irreversible brain damage that can occur. It's an issue that affects many people of color, and these kids already have enough issues to face, and having lead be one of them that probably will be with them the rest of their life is not one that I would wish on anybody. So if it's something that we could start working on to prevent this from other young children, that's where I would advocate the money to go, or at least a portion of it to go. Thank you so much.
Next, we have Marcasa Tucker Harris, followed by Sister McCannon Brown.
Good evening, and thanks for addressing the question in the chat. My name is Marcasa Tucker Harris. I am a resident and live in Aldermanic District 6. I have been working with a group of folks since 2019 through our Liberate MKE campaign. where we have actually asked for participatory budgeting. And if folks are not familiar with what that is, it's actually a process where the community actually leads a steering committee and they put in proposals and they vote on what project they would like to see funded through the participatory budgeting. Through participatory budgeting, we're asking for a pot of money to go to each aldermanic district, prioritizing districts who have had, who've been hit the hardest with COVID and who have also experienced tons of divestment. Again, this is something we've been asking for since 2019. I'm not really sure why the city hasn't followed through on it. Back in 2019, we had about 9 alders, many, or I won't say many, but some who are not present any longer on the Common Council, but they never came back to this. And this is something that people are still asking for. We're preparing to send petitions to the city to share with you all in regards to how many people are still interested in this participatory budgeting process. This is something that truly engages the community. I believe the way that it has been done through this survey. I just sent a message in the comments just saying, 53206. Yeah, we know that that's been a hard hit zip code, but only 10 residents completed that survey. And I don't think that having a survey where only less than 1% of the residents, with mostly middle-aged white women, according to the survey's demographics, have completed that in the 53207 zip code. So that to me is not participatory. That is not decision-making power being put in the residents' hands. So I would ask that you all would consider giving aldermanic districts a pot of money and allowing them to decide where they want to put the money. We can do it with the ARPA money. We have this opportunity. Let us not continue to go down this same cycle where we have been put into a fiscal crisis. As the speaker said, we're in a dire place right now. Give us an opportunity to be a part of this process in a real decision-making way. Thank you.
We have Sister McCannon Brown, followed by Richard Diaz.
I'm unmuted, correct?
Correct.
So thank you for this opportunity, and Alderwoman Mullally, very good to know you are so involved and knit into this process. A good opportunity to give people voices. And what I wish to deliver here in this brief allotment of time is to bring a question we hope will help you as administrators of this. We hope it will help shape some of the inquiry from the community. In order to deliver it, I will just say, in my 30 years of working with the homeless and at-risk homeless population, it may be my honor in doing that. And that in the last 8 years, serving as CEO of an emerging organization, McCannon Brown Homeless Sanctuary. We are at 24th Place and Center. We began with no human resources, no fiscal resources, and we're in our 8 years coming into a time where we're making more and more people are respecting the impact that we're having, reversing homelessness, reversing poverty, reversing food scarcity. The scope of our work is large. You can see that on our website. And we are so engaged in the beginning a partnership with Children's Hospital, middle of March, where we will be a site, a lead testing site for families with children under 10. We are so blessed to have the acknowledgement of Children's Hospital in our capacity to do brave things. Already have been involved in the lead issue since 2021. And in delivering this question, I just will give a little bit of background. I'll give more detail by way of email to Alderwoman Lele Cox to save time. But that affirmation by Children's Hospital has been in contrast to our experience in the Lead Emergency Coalition, where we placed a blooming or emerging leader and have documented experiences she has had being sometimes silenced. We have had an issue of even behind when we were asking about a portion of the funding in the very bold and diligent work that we've been doing, very effective work, educating the community about lead, growing constituent leadership. We have been discouraged by that. Before we were so flatly declined, we are in the most heavily lead contaminated area of Wisconsin, in that zip code, in district number 88, where we are located, and we were flatly declined. We would have filters, and then witnessed that a group in another zip code was the recipient of funding to do what we already have capacity to do, and that group did not have a history of involvement in the coalition and did not have a track record similar to ours. So my question that I'm bringing, with all respect to any of you who are committed to making a difference, the broker or the administrators of this funding, do you give scrutiny for coalitions to who the decision makers are? Have they been chosen by orthodox processes? And are there processes of selection that guarantee fairness? That's my question. I don't expect an answer. That's
Sister,
my question.
I truly apologize for interrupting. We are at time, and your audio is, it sounds like your internet connection may not be great. So what I would encourage you to do is I'll throw my email into the Q&A, and it sounds like you already have Alderwoman Cog's email as well. And if you would like to provide us with a summary, we would be happy to pass that along to the task force. And I wanted to provide just one more suggestion to anyone on this call who might have a specific funding request. The ARPA task force is able to consider your request through a process that we're still establishing if you have obtained a sponsor who is a member of the Common Council or a city department. So if you have a particular funding request, please send that to your alderperson or a different alderperson who you think might be particularly interested, and ask them to sponsor your request to the task force. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next, we have Richard Diaz and Heiner Giese.
Thanks, Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Much appreciation and praise to Alderwoman Malele Coggs for her hard work in making this task force a thing and giving the community the opportunity to give input on how these dollars should be spent. Also, shout out to Alderwoman Jocasta Zamarripa for her work in making sure that these hearings take place. My name is Richard Diaz. I'm the chairperson of the Coalition on Lead Emergency, and we are extremely grateful for the ARPA funds invested in the first round to go to the Milwaukee Health Department. The resources are dedicated to remediating homes where children are already poisoned at blood lead levels at or above 10 micrograms per deciliter, which is a huge success and way better than serving kids who test at the previous action level of 20 micrograms per deciliter. Kids only receiving services at that enormously high level is equivalent to being told by a doctor, come back when you have stage 5 cancer. The funding from the first round does not address prevention or removing lead hazards when a child's blood lead level is below 10 micrograms per deciliter. But we have hope. City investment of $5 million into a lead safe and healthy homes fund could focus on removing lead hazards to not only prevent lead poisoning, but also respond to every case at the Center for Disease Control's standard of 3 micrograms per deciliter. Through this model, a public investment in the second tranche of ARPA would spur additional investments from private dollars and create a multiplier effect. The fund would have the ability to structure assistance in the form of grants and revolving loans, meaning that ARPA dollars paired with private dollars can make a greater impact over a longer period of time. Therefore, a Lead Safe and Healthy Homes Fund would build off the success of the first round of ARPA and focus on preventative removal of lead hazards and support private property owners to protect these kids. Based off how our city dollars have been spent in previous years, we are quicker to take a kid to jail than we are to give them a safe and healthy home that they won't be poisoned at. The direct connection between lead poisoning and violence has been studied for years. So instead of us waiting for our kids to be poisoned and grow up to commit violent crime, let's educate our families and get their homes abated. Thank you.
Heiner Giese, followed by Geneva Jones.
While we're waiting on Mr. Giese, I do want to acknowledge that Alderman Mark Chamber of the 2nd Automatic District has joined us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I just got the unmute notification. So I'm the attorney and lobbyist for the rental property owners in Milwaukee, the Apartment Association of Southeastern Wisconsin. I have 2 suggestions for spending ARPA funds. One would be a public-private partnership to update and improve electric service in rental properties. This would work to the extent of providing, let's say, a $2,000 grant for updating electric service or improving, adding outlets, etc. That would need to be matched by the property owner. So if the cost was $2,000, the owner would pay $1,000, and the ARPA funds would pay for the remaining $1,000. That could do a lot of good in upgrading a lot of the older properties in the city that, as I know, I'm in fact living in an older house myself in Wauwatosa. Some rooms only have 1 outlet. So that could help a lot to increase electrical safety. The other suggestion I have is that funds should be made available to legal aid and legal action. Interestingly, not for the attorneys, which are currently representing tenants who are facing eviction, but for the tenants themselves. What has happened is that because of the large number of cases that are now being defended by attorneys in evictions, the evictions are taking an extra month. That has led to landlords, unfortunately, then requiring double security deposits or more stringent screening, which hurts low-income tenants, because they know that if they do unfortunately have an eviction, it's going to take extra time for them to, get a new tenant for a non-paying tenant. So my idea would be to propose funding for legal aid and legal action in the amount of, let's say, $500 to $800. And the attorneys at that point would make those funds available to any eviction case they are handling where the tenant has fallen behind, is being evicted, but now wishes to stay and wishes to catch up. Money's going to run out this summer from the current funds that are available from other ARPA funds. So that's going to be a critical issue. And it would certainly be helpful at that point if a tenant who has fallen behind several months on rent is now facing eviction, if the owner of the property knows that because there's an attorney involved and the case is going to get delayed, that they are at least going to get that month of delay paid for, they will be willing to work with the attorney and with the tenant to allow them to stay in the property. It would do a lot of good. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could just interrupt one more time, it appears that there is no option to provide a chat or a Q&A, at least from the panelist side, that will reach all of the participants. So I'm going to share my screen very briefly. I'm going to leave it up while we have the next couple questions. It's going to have my email address on it, and anyone who would like to reach out and provide additional information, please feel free to email me, and I will make sure that that information reaches the proper people. I would note you will probably get my out of office for the next week or so, but when I am back in the office, I will certainly attend to all of those emails. And please proceed with the testimony.
Next, we have Geneva Jones.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having this forum for us. I'm speaking on behalf of the LEDCO organization and also
Let
Mighty
people
Small. Hello?
Proceed.
Oh, okay. I'd like the money to go to LEDCO, and I also am interested in Mighty Small Moments. I like the lady before, or several of the citizens before, speak about accountability. All of these people that have gotten their boxes checked and have gotten their check and they're increasing the check and haven't really gave an accountability as to with these trainings, as to if these young people that have gotten this training have gone on to land a job, or did they still end up in McDonald's, something that's far from what they were doing, or have they now become the trainers for younger people coming in because they may be more influential to these younger people. This going down this slippery slope of taking from the city of Milwaukee, but yet saying that they're giving is a problem to me. Housing, yes, that's a problem to me, but it's a problem because the city of Milwaukee has given now the rights to a property. Properties have the wherewithal to now accept you. You can move into a property with rent assistance or subsidies, which to me is it undermined the effort of us getting to a point where we hold landlords and people accountable, right, for their mean treatment, for their racial treatment, for their discrimination, for their segregation, no attitudes, right? But we can't because we've given that to, right, houses. We've given that to apartment buildings. We're giving that to a building and not allowed the people to be able to go out and pick those homes and then get back to us. So that accountability is in all that money that you've given out and that these people are saying, look what we're doing. But it still remains that there is no accountability for the fact that it goes to a building, right? That's supposed to be a person walking into a situation where the landlord will perhaps now treat or think differently because their money is on the line. I've agreed also, or I wanted to mention also, with my time that's left, this Arpa situation. I would love to see our future affected in a positive manner. I think LEDCO would do that. I look forward to LEDCO receiving that money. I also would suggest to Mighty Small Moments because they deal with our children who are most affected during the time of their growth with the brain in their bodies that's getting all this lead poisoning and that's affecting them for the rest of their lives. As folks have said, not just through what they've read, but through lifelong situations. And I thank you guys again for allowing us to speak, but it's our future to me that's at stake. And if I can make any small impact, it would be to look at our future. So I would like the $5 million plus to go to LEDCO, and thank you all.
Okay, moving on. If anyone wishes to testify today, there's a raise hand feature. And so you press your raise hand button and then we will call on you in the order that you raise your hand. Moving on to the next person is Annie Young.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for holding this tonight. I appreciate it. I'm not on any committee and I don't represent anybody. I am just a resident on the north side of Milwaukee. And I would like to say that from my perspective, things that I view as important are lead safety. It bothers me that there's 70,000 pipes going to our homes that are carrying water that are damaging our children. There is no amount of lead that is safe in a child or an adult. It is poison, and I'd like to see that addressed vigorously. I'd like to see lighting addressed vigorously. I think in our neighborhood, we've seen our lights go out, street lights go out 6 or 7 times in the past year, where they just go out. And I don't know whether the electrical infrastructure is that bad, or if they're shooting them out, or what they're doing, but it creates dark spaces and it creates problems. And we are, my kids are afraid. They're afraid of gunshots. We're awakened by them. We see the kids running in and out of the shadows at night. I'd like to see better lighting. And then I'd also like to reiterate what I'm hearing from everybody else. I'd really love to see accountability. I think it's important that we as residents know where the money is being spent and how that it's being spent and see results. I don't think I see a lot of results from improved safety in our neighborhoods and improved traffic and the gun violence. I don't see anything yet. I still see kids driving down Center Street waving their guns. So, I just would like to see something done, and I'd like to see improvement. I think there's some great ideas. I don't think anything is a bad idea. I just, if I had to express where I would like to see things prioritized, those are the 3 areas that I would like to see. So thank you.
Joseph Elwinger. Joseph Elwinger. Followed by Baisha Whitten. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you. I just wanted to share a few ideas that I have been discussing with my family groups. I have children at Maryland Avenue Montessori School, and we have been really coming together since the pandemic, discussing how we could have a community center with expanded hours for our multi-generational families, where we have older adults that need care and younger children that need care, and safe spaces where we could have meetings to do healthy things. So some of the ideas that we discussed that I wanted to lift up are healthy use of abandoned spaces in our neighborhoods to create healthy living centers where people can get help to stop smoking, develop their parenting skills, resolve conflicts, reduce risky drinking, manage stress, and combat depression. Free bus passes to families, healthy food boxes to families, job training, expanded tutoring in reading and math for MPS students, affordable dental clinics, affordable health clinics, community policing alternatives, using participatory budgeting to vote on grassroots projects in our communities, devices to families and hotspots for learning and small businesses so we can be part of the economic commerce, e-commerce and electronic internet type things, and expanding small business incubators in neighborhoods for pop-up shops and community gathering. And just a far out idea that we were discussing was a public boarding school, not in a misbehaving student kind of capacity, a place of academic excellence and growing geniuses for our future. Thank you.
Joseph Elwinger, if you are ready. Followed by Ann Batiza. Joseph Elwinger, Ann Patiza.
Is Joe here?
Go ahead, Ann.
Hi, just 1 second. Let me pull up my comments. First of all, I'd like to thank the alderpersons who have arranged this opportunity for citizen input. My name is Ann Batiza. I am the representative from the League of Women Voters in Milwaukee County to the Coalition on Lead Emergency, and today I'm speaking on behalf of COLE. I am requesting $5 million to seed the Lead Free and Healthy Homes Fund as an investment in a public-private partnership. Currently, a child must be a canary in a coal mine who must show up poisoned in order for that home to be abated. And this fund would provide money for the city to have funds needed to remove the lead hazard from our city efficiently based on external and internal assessments in vulnerable neighborhoods. This will benefit not just children currently living in the city, but generations of children to come. Thank you very much.
Joseph Elwinger.
Me?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, Joseph Elwinger. I live at 16th and Walnut in Alderman Stamper's district, and I belong to Hephatha Lutheran Church at 18th and Locust, which is in Alderperson Malele Coggs district. And I'm grateful to both of those alderpersons for the leadership that they have shown on many levels and many issues facing our city, including the lead abatement need. And I am here speaking especially for as a member of COLE. It was not by accident that Coalition on Lead Emergency was formed at Hephatha Church. It is located in a community that is 30% children with lead poisoning. And so it's a very real issue for us. Every Sunday in worship, there are two young men, now about 8 and 10, who one was severely lead poisoned, and we see the results of lead poisoning every Sunday as we see some attention deficit issues that are pretty serious. And it's the sort of thing that leads to violence and leads to school dropouts. And I will never forget the story that the mother of these two boys told me, that when Aiden, her youngest son, came home from K4 one day with a note that said, "Do not send Aiden back. We cannot deal with him." If Aiden had not had a loving, caring parent, I hesitate to think about where he would be now and where he would be in another 5 to 10 years. So I'm just stressing the importance, the urgency of this issue of dealing with lead abatement and the value of the $5 million in the Lead Safe Healthy Homes Fund, which will generate, if it's anywhere close to Cleveland's experience, it will generate 20 times that amount of money from public-private partnerships. So the urgency and the moral aspects, the alternative of not dealing in really significant ways with this issue, the result will be 3 generations of our children continuing to suffer from lead poisoning. So for the future of our city, I urge you to include the $5 million for this program.
Next up, we have Tamika Glenn.
Hello?
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Well, my name is Tamika Glenn, and I am speaking on behalf of myself, being a mother of a 30-year-old young man that suffered with lead poison at the age of 8 of a lead level of 20. Throughout the years, he has been in and out of incarceration. He was an IEP child. He definitely had cognitive delays, and he couldn't understand why he couldn't learn, or why he couldn't comprehend, or why his behavior was so bad. But it made me become more interested in researching more about lead abatement and asthma at the same time. I am also one of the longest running lead researchers in Milwaukee 53206 area. I've did PBS specials in regards to this back in 2005 about the issues that we were having in the 53206 neighborhood in regards to lead. And at that point in time, we were over 29,000 in kids being affected by lead. So I can only imagine at what point we're at right now. I would love to see the money being allocated to the coal project, which is not much. $5 million is only a drop in the bucket. I would love to see 20 to 25 million going to that project. We want to deter a lot of this gun violence and reckless driving, and work with the Office of Violence Prevention. Well, people need to understand that lead is one of the common causes of all of this violence that is going on right now. A majority of our kids are labeled and being talked about as bad behavior kids, or ADHD kids, or whatever you want to call them. But they're all just children, and they need a fighting chance to be able to become productive citizens out here. So if we do not address this issue of lead, how do we expect any violence to be attended to in a 53206 zip code? So me, myself, I'm definitely allocating that at least $20 million need to go to the coal project. And thank you.
Janet Mesmer Pritchard.
Thank you. I am an active member of COAL as well, and I also had the honor of serving on the City County Task Force that developed the Climate and Equity Plan that's been referenced by some other speakers on this meeting. And I would like to speak to ask for resources to be directed towards both those issues. I don't want to repeat all the very compelling statements that have been made by others in this meeting who have spoken in favor of directing ARPA resources towards a lead safe and healthy homes fund. But what I would like to underscore is how this investment of $5 million really will have a multiplier effect. And that's because with the understanding that there are many issues that the city has and towards which these monies could be directed, many compelling issues. But the nature of the Green and Healthy Homes Fund that's being advocated here is that with the seed money, Milwaukee can start to demonstrate the types of activities that the fund would be invested in. And this will help the fund administrators to solicit funds from other sources, from philanthropic and private sources. So with this seed money, the fund can grow exponentially, as it has in Cleveland, as a city that has demonstrated this model, and draw other funds that beyond asking for more direct money from the city, which we all know is under a lot of fiscal constraint. So, but this seed money is very important in order to be able to leverage the opportunity to solicit additional funds from philanthropic and private sources to meet all the compelling needs to address lead poisoning, as other speakers have noted. Secondly, I'd like to encourage the ARPA task force to invest in the city's climate and equity plan that will be considered and hopefully adopted fully by the Common Council in the upcoming months. Those who are interested in learning more about the climate equity plan, there's a lot of information about it on the city's Eco Office website. And again, I think a small investment in the climate and equity plan, which not only will help build a more resilient city and address the threats of climate change, but also is equally concerned about making sure that investments in addressing climate change and building resiliency also seek to employ and address the employ people from distressed communities in the city and address the economic inequality and disinvestment that is unfortunately so much a reality in our city. And
Ma'am,
there is
you're
an
close to
important- okay.
You're close to time, please.
Just briefly to say, to make sure that the Eco Office has sufficient resources to apply for further federal funding to address climate and equity issues. There's a lot of federal funding that's been made available through recent legislation like the Inflation Reduction Act. And we need to make sure the city has the resources to access those funds. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comment. And just to remind people, we do certainly appreciate it if you could keep your comments to 1 minute, just so that we allow everybody to speak who still wishes to speak at the meeting. If you do have additional information, please feel free to send it to me or to your alderperson. Thank you.
Next is Leah Holloway.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am a resident of Sherman Park and also a member of the Coalition on Lead Emergency. So I just wanted to chime in with other folks who have spoken very eloquently tonight about the importance of the $5 million for the Lead Safe and Healthy Homes Fund. And then I also agree with the speaker before me on the importance of funding the recommendations put forth by the Climate and Economic Equity Task Force. I think those are really important areas for our city to fund and invest in. So thank you so much.
Shaquita McElroy.
Hi there, my name is Shaquita McElroy, and I am a member of Coalition on Lead Emergency, as well as the mother of a lead poisoned child. And speaking from experience, my son is now 16 years old, but he was lead poisoned coming out of the 53206 zip code is where he spent most of his life up into only a few months ago. And through the struggles of him being lead poisoned, the effects that he's faced being lead poisoned, he still lives with today. So though his lead levels are not high, he still have to live with the effects of being lead poisoned for the rest of his life. And that's the story and the sad reality of a lot of children across the city of Milwaukee. So with that being said, these funds, the $5 million that Coalition on Lead Emergency is asking for the Lead Safe and Healthy Homes program is not only going to change the status quo, but it's also going to allow children to have a fighting chance at life, have a fighting chance at society, have a fighting chance even in school. My son graduated 8th grade only 2 years ago. And when he graduated, I was a super proud mom because he struggled so much through school. And after he graduated, in the midst of me celebrating, he looked me dead in my face and said that he didn't want to finish. He didn't want to go to high school. He didn't want to no longer be a part of the learning process. And that broke my heart because for children, when I was younger, it was okay to drop out in high school because that was something that was a normal. Now children are dropping out in middle school, dropping out in elementary school because they struggle so hard. But if we could stop this from happening, stop the lead poisoning from happening, stop the effects from happening, stop these things from happening to them that they have to live with for the rest of their lives, then that's how we win. That's how children have a fighting chance. And that's how they begin to see life can be fair, society can be fair, things can be fair, and I can make it. But if we're stacking the deck against them at the beginning, we're only setting them up for failure. So I ask that you please consider allocating these funds to make sure that we stop the cycle and break the generational curse that's been happening for so many years. Thank you so much.
Connor Williams.
Yes, good afternoon or good evening. Thank you for holding this public hearing. My name is Connor Williams. I'm an economist with Community Advocates. I also am part of the Coalition on Lead Emergency and want to speak briefly about in support of the $5 million investment into the lead-free and Healthy Homes Fund. I facilitate the Coal Workforce Development Committee, and we are grateful for earlier contributions from the city towards a training and a paid training for people from the central city to get trained in construction skills and also lead abatement certifications. We're grateful to you, our elected leaders, that 91 people from the inner city got trained in 2022, people who were had obstacles to employment, and they are now trained and being employed in doing lead abatement work in our central city, improving our housing stock. And the $5 million that Cole is asking for would be used in a similar way to train and employ individuals from our central city to make our homes in the central city of Milwaukee safe, and at the same time be deriving an income doing that work. It would be an economic development tool. Finally, I wanted to share that the Pew Center on the States has done extensive work on estimating the economic benefits of investing in initiatives to reduce lead poisoning. And they determined that each dollar spent on reducing lead poisoning in our cities generates $17 worth of additional economic benefits. In the city of Cleveland, it's been mentioned that a similar housing fund was set up, which is now over $100 million. $100 million, if the city invested $5 million, and if we as a community could coalesce around that to get philanthropic dollars to grow it to $100 million, in time that $100 million would save $1.7 billion in our community. I appeal to you, our elected leaders, to be wise and be good stewards of these second tranche of ARPA dollars and invested in the well-being of our community. Thank you.
Deanna Branch. Deanna Branch.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Hello, I'm an organizer with the Coalition on Lead Emergency and a concerned parent of 2 children who have been personally impacted by lead exposure. I already provided testimony at the first ARPA meeting, but I just want to reiterate that COLE is calling on the ARPA task force to invest $5 million of ARPA funds to seed a lead safe and healthy homes fund for Milwaukee. Let's all do our part in creating a lead safe environment for our children. Thank you.
Next, we have Kivia Gilden. Kivia Gilden.
Hi, my name is Kiva Guyton. I am with Citizen Action of Wisconsin, Northside Rising Co-op, and I am here because I'd like to ask for allocation for the Milwaukee Climate and Equity Plan, which includes the Big 10 plan. Couple of those things are for green jobs, the Green Job Task Force, also for transportation, things of that need. Also, I am a representative with COLE, Coalition on Lead Emergencies. So I back everything that everybody here is saying on that. I also want everybody to know that the things that I am asking for is a human right, and we do need to keep a focus on the removal of lead pipes This is something that a program, we need to create some type of program which assists homeowners with lead pipe replacement. Also, homeowners and renters to move towards green energy. I know I got a minute and I talk a lot. We also need help to provide money for solar panels, to green up things for rooftops, resources for input besides the Public Service Commission for energy burden, which I'm sure everybody knows there's been 11% rate increase, which is a problem on our disadvantaged neighborhoods. Also abandoned houses, we need to see something done with that, and green gas emissions, and just another outlet or entity to help low-income families and homes become weatherized, because it's much work for our community advocates and SDC to handle on their own. Thank you.
Okay, we have someone by the name of Dorothy S21. Dorothy S21.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead, please identify yourself.
Okay, my name is Dorothy Listenby, and I live at 1730 North 21st Street. I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you some of my ideas on how to spend the remaining federal stimulus fund money. In my opinion, we do need to replace those old damaged underground pipes, as well as the lead pipes that lead into the homes, because it has been proven that it definitely has caused serious health issues to our children. The other thing is, I would hope that we can improve our infrastructure here in the city of Milwaukee. That includes the streets, the roads, the boulevards, because they are in need of some major repair. Our streets have been neglected for many years. They are so damaged. You have potholes, the material that the streets have been surfaced with or peeling up, and we just need to do something about that. Then the other thing is, we should have training programs at the Milwaukee Area Technical College so that we can train our young people in the new technology, those jobs are coming. And we also need skill training so you can have carpenters, plumbers, electrical workers, auto mechanics. Everyone doesn't have to go to college, but they can get a skill apprenticeship program so that they will be able to have their own business and employ other people. Another thing, I think we should start early intervention with our youth, which would help to resolve some of the issues that we're having with the youth now that are getting into trouble, like stealing cars and doing all kinds of other things that traditionally we wouldn't see that. And I'm advocating also that we spend some money so that we can have community policing. So we form something where we have our church members involved, local community organizations involved, as well as, having your police department, your sheriff department, so we can start early. And we probably can eliminate some of the major issues that we're having right now. And another thing is internship programs, where we introduce young people to different jobs so they will learn what type of education is required. And we need to match the young people up with individuals who are actually doing the job.
Ma'am, we're at time.
I know. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Next, we have Maria Beltran.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, thank you everyone for letting me speak. Thank you for giving this to the community to make decisions and put their input. I just want to introduce myself. Hello, I'm Maria Beltran. I'm a homeowner in Lindsay Heights community for over 31 years. I'm an ambassador of Mighty Small Moments, working to strengthen our babies' brains. And I'm also with Coalition on Lead Emergency with co-parent lead to keep our babies' brains healthy. Myself and my entire family have been lead poisoned and inside of our home. I applied in 2019 to have my home to be lead abated and had went through many denials, difficulties, and hardships to finally getting approved in November of 2021. The work finally being done in December of 2022. With the $5 million, which should be more, that Cole is requesting of these Arpa dollars, Cole will have the opportunity to save lives of many children and many, many other families. Please help Cole and give him $5 million or more to prevent hospitalizations, behavior and physical health problems for the rest of their lives to prevent that. Our children are our future, not our lead detectors. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Next, we have Nikki Purvis.
Good evening, everyone. I am Nikki Purvis, and I serve as the president and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce of Wisconsin. I am here this evening to advocate on behalf of my colleagues who are part of the Ethnic and Diverse Business Coalition. As a collective, we are responsible for providing technical assistance and resources to small, diverse businesses. As we look at the effects of the pandemic of COVID-19, we know that many small businesses were impacted negatively. Many of them shut their doors. And so there was a request by the Ethnic and Diverse Business Coalition back in 2022, requesting an allocation of $2.5 million to support the organizations that ensure that there's some economic viability in the community. And so I would ask that this body review that recommendation and that request and move forward with the approval of those funds to continue to support small, diverse businesses. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Wanza, Canada, followed by Huda Elka.
Hello.
Go ahead, Wanza.
Hello. I am a resident of the Lindsay Heights area. Thank you for this opportunity. I believe funds should focus on addressing the impact that COVID has had on our youth. First, there should be parenting clinics. Secondly, we need to address mental health. We need the recreational centers to have programs that focus on team building, activities, and conflict resolution. Additionally, funds can be set aside so that children from low-income homes can attend the UWM College for Kids program and programs at Discovery World. Additionally, we need mentoring programs for our children. We also need youth employment in the area of vocational and skill training. And lastly, I believe funds should be allocated for addressing the needs of homeowners. Thank you for this opportunity.
Next, we have Huda Elka, followed by Christine Clem.
Yes, thank you.
In the name of God, the most merciful, most compassionate, I greet you with the Islamic greeting, Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you. I'm Huda Altaf. I'm the founder and director of Wisconsin Green Muslims, based in Milwaukee, which is a grassroots environmental justice group formed in 2005. For 18 years now, connecting faith, environmental justice, sustainability, and healing through education and service. Wisconsin Green Muslim is a member of the Coalition on Lead Emergency, and we join our partners here in calling on the Arpa task force to invest $5 billion of the Arpa fund to see the lead safe and healthy homes fund for Milwaukee. I also have been participating for a couple of years now and more in the Climate and Equity Task Force for Milwaukee City and the county. And we definitely are asking for funding for the climate change, to addressing climate change, such as low-cost new homes that are energy efficient, replacing insulation, furnaces, windows in current homes, and also to invest in job training programs. So thank you very much.
We have Christine Clem, followed by Grisel Delgado.
Hi, my name is Christine Kine. I'm the parish nurse at Hepatha Lutheran Church on 18th and Locust in Milwaukee. I'm also a member of the Coalition on Lead Emergency, and I'm asking the ARPA committee to give the $5 million to seed the Lead Safe and Healthy Homes Fund. From 2008 to 2017, I was the school nurse at public school in 53206. And during that time, there were 30 to 34% of the children in the school that were in special education. And in 2016, the census tract for that same school showed that 30% of children suffered from lead poisoning. I also want to say that when a child is assessed for special education in school, one of the first things they do is they check their lead level history. And the nurse often does that. So that was one of my tasks to do. And I will say that it would be more unusual to see a child that did not have a lead level history than to see one that did. That met just about every single child had one. And also the behaviors and the learning disabilities would align very much with the issues that of the children that we saw in the school, align very much with the issues that are caused by lead poisoning. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Grisel Delgado, followed by Nakia Fisher. Grisel Delgado. You can unmute. Go ahead.
Is that me?
Well, the name is Grisel Delgado.
I'm sorry, I don't know why it's showing up as that. This is Vaughn Mays. I am here to echo several things already stated here tonight, starting with Marques's participatory budget ideal, and also starting with what was referred to as community policing alternatives. Shantia Lewis started a path with her resolution based off of a list of demands that ComForce presented in 2020. That was forwarded to the council. So Shantia took that up. But somehow when we wrote that list of demands, one that called for community, non-armed, non-police community response, that somehow ended up still being prioritized towards fire and police. And even so, today I'm being told there's a crisis intervention task force, which still is being led in a way by fire and police, which is fine. But when we wrote that demand, it was with the community and with residents being the champions of that and being prioritized. Conforce and Mira have a track record of that. We do community first response. We are forming partnerships to be of complement and supplement to the fire department and not an adversary. And so if those plans are going to move forward, we would ask that that we participate in the budget and that the people be listened to, and that the community be prioritized in that. So support Montreal's Community First Responder Pilot Program. Also echoing the need for safe spaces. I believe we need an all access facility and multi-purpose youth and a community activity and meeting space. A lot of organizations have these spaces, but because of COVID or different barriers, everyone cannot access that space to have community meetings, gatherings, stuff for the youth. So maybe we can find some location to do that out of, so that smaller organizations or community, if they would like to hold a press conference, if they would like to hold a community forum, et cetera, can all have some sort of access to that. And also I would like to introduce the idea to utilize some of these vacant properties, such as maybe the old libraries. I've even had some conversations with Chief Lipsky about using some of the unused fire stations right now as community hubs to do some of these trainings and services for residents in the surrounding areas. And that's all I have to say.
Nakia Fisher, followed by Katie Sparks.
Thank you. My name is Nakia Fisher. I'm a longtime resident of Milwaukee, born and raised here in Milwaukee, also a resident of the 53206 zip code, and also a organizer for the Fight for 15. And so that is where I would like funds to also be dispersed. I would love the conversation of a minimum wage increase here in Milwaukee. The minimum wage here in Milwaukee has been at $7.25 for, I think, since 2012. We haven't had an increase since. And I don't know if everybody else has been paying attention, but eggs are now $8. Everything is going up except for the people's pay rate. And the reason why I think this is very important, because parents are working 2 or 3 jobs at $11, $12 an hour, still can't pay and provide for their bills, leaving them and their children alone. No one's there to police or to take care of the children because the mother or the father is out of the home working. So the children are by themselves and basically parenting themselves. And we know an idle mind, we know the rest of that. And so we are seeing the cause of that. We're seeing more and more people on the poverty line, and we just want a fair shot, just like Chicago, just like Madison, just like all the others surrounding us that have gained some type of minimum wage increase. We want that conversation to be on the table. A lot of people who have ran and been elected have used this as their campaign basis, but they have done nothing once they got in office. They have not brought the conversation up to say, yes, we should do something different. And what 725 means is that in most companies, they can tell you that when you come into a company that, yeah, we're going to pay you $11, we're going to pay you $12 an hour. And a lot of people, 87% of people that go into these jobs do not know how to negotiate. And so those type of things are being missed. That is with the miseducation of our youth as well. They're not taught financial literacy. And we don't have the programs in place to teach the youth nor our adults how to actually navigate in the financial hardships or that they face. We are expecting them to go back into the workforce, which COVID obviously set a lot of people down, but then we may demonize a lot of people who don't choose to go back to work, but we are not seeing the struggles that they have to get back to work. And so that is my piece. I'm hoping that the conversation this year is everything that everyone here has lifted, but also the conversation of raising our minimum wage so that our people here in Milwaukee have a fair chance, like every other city that has seen this increase and seen what it can do for the people. Thank you.
Katie Sparks, followed by Maraka Harris.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
My name is Katie Sparks. I work in the following zip codes: 53206, 53205, 53208, 53212, 53216, 53222, 53214, and more throughout the city. When I travel in all of these different zip codes, I see how horrendous the housing is in our community. There's lead poisoning, which a lot of people have talked to, but there are other health issues like mold. There's even insects and rodents in a lot of properties. There's exposed electrical, plumbing, holes in ceilings and walls throughout our community. And landlords continue to rent to different different renters. In 53206 alone, there's 8,600 homes that were built in 1939 or earlier. Lead was only abated in the 70s. So research shows that old housing stock in our community causes a host of issues, which have been talked about by other speakers, including brain damage, learning and education issues, propensity to violence and reckless actions, health and behavioral health issues, including lead poisoning, asthma, anxiety, ADHD, and so much more. I believe it is a crime that landlords have been allowed to continue to rent to families and people who develop these issues because of unsafe homes and unsafe living conditions. We know that $5 million that has been proposed will not cover all of these expenses to abate all of this and get these homes safe again. And we know landlords will continue to rent to families with these violations, but we would appreciate the task force time and attention on analyzing and assessing the true cost of improving older homes, housing stock, and unsafe living conditions in Milwaukee, which would include ARPA dollars, private dollars, and other government funding to resolve these public health and mental health issues, as well as the education and violence issues that come with that. We would appreciate a long-term action plan on how to abate these issues in housing, which have plagued our kids and families for decades and generations. We know this won't take just the ARPA dollars, and it won't take just a couple of years. It will be a long-term plan, and we would appreciate a long-term action plan on how to make housing safe because it leads to other issues in our community. Thank you.
And our final speaker who has yet to testify is Marika Harris. Marika Harris.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to start with a gratitude. Thank you, Alderwoman Coggs and the task force for all the work that you're doing. My name is Marika Harris, and I have the honor and privilege of serving at the Dominican Center, which is a nonprofit organization located in Milwaukee's Amani neighborhood within the 53206 zip code. I am here in support of the Coalition on Lead Emergency to advocate alongside so many others on this call today in asking for the $5 million seed investment for the Lead Safe and Healthy Homes Fund for Milwaukee. So many striking stories and perspectives have already been shared. And so I'd like to just take a moment to do something a little different and focus on more of the data around the neighborhood with hopes that it can serve as a backdrop as to why this advocacy and what we're asking for is so important. The Amani neighborhood spans 130 blocks, with its boundaries being between 20th Street to 30th Street and from Keith Avenue to North Avenue. Within those boundaries, there are 6,937 residents who live within the neighborhood. 95% are African-American, and the median income is $19,041. One of the things that I always love to talk about, though, is really the history of the neighborhood, because it's a neighborhood where most people always focus on talking about the challenges. But I think it's important to always amplify the fact that it is a neighborhood that is not where it is by accident. There has been decades, and I emphasize decades of divestment in that neighborhood. And it has, because of the systemic divestment in the neighborhood, it faces many challenges. It's also a neighborhood that is extremely beautiful. It is a mixed bag in terms of the people who call that neighborhood home. And it's truly a resident-led neighborhood where residents are raising their hands to volunteer and make the neighborhood a better place. But one of the points that has been shared is around housing and the intersection of housing and lead. And so I did want to share that there are a little more than 3,200 housing units within the Amani neighborhood. And as Katie touched on just before me, 68% of the homes in Amani were built before 1939. 90% of the homes were built before 1979. And so it is an extremely older housing stock. And that's one of the reasons why this ask is so important, is to really invest in a neighborhood that, again, is not where it is by accident. It was decades of divestment. And so we need to see decades of investment in the neighborhood to get it to where we aspire for it to be. Thank you.
That would complete the speakers.
I do want to take the time, and I know, Andrea, you probably could close us out with the website for the survey and sending stuff to alders and all of that. I do want to take a moment, though, to say thank you to everybody who shared their great ideas and thoughts with us here today. Please know that we hear you, and we will be, weighing the suggestions that have been given with us as a task force as well. Based upon the legislation that was passed that created the task force, there is a process that we are developing that we'll formally have for submissions. And I think Andrea could tell you a little bit more about how you can, how you'll be able to submit your plans and ideas. But please know that I know those of us alders who are present here this evening are very grateful from hearing from you. And we have heard the issues that you want to make sure that we prioritize as we look to spend this final tranche of the ARPA dollars. So again, thank you for joining us tonight. And I think I'll turn it over to Andrea to give some remarks.
Thank you, Alderwoman Coggs. Just very briefly, thank you again to everyone who attended and who spoke. I've received emails from a number of you as well. Thank you for sending those. Please be assured, I know my camera was off. That's because I was busily typing so that I could take notes of everything that you said. Those comments will all be passed along to the ARPA task force along with comments from the previous two community meetings. As Alderwoman Coggs said, we are developing the process for how proposals can be submitted, but at a minimum, you will need a sponsor as a member who is a member of the Common Council or a city department. So if you have a very full fleshed out idea that you would like to submit, it's not a bad idea to reach out to your alderperson or an alderperson who you think would be particularly interested in your idea, and they can work with you to get that into a format for submission to the task force. Thank you very much. I posted my email in the chat, so if anyone would like to reach out, I would be happy to respond to you individually. And once again, thank you very much for everyone attending, both from the public and on the city's side. We really appreciate your time this evening. Thank you very much.